Hi, I'm going to talk about something that some of you probably know about because it's part of the Quantway materials for the curriculum, and it's the FIT lessons, and I've forgotten what FIT stands for, something for improvement of teaching.
Uh, Framework
Um,
for improving teaching.
yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
And and I'm going to just show you one piece in particular. So these lessons are that you could, there are, I think, three of them in the Quantway core, and you can substitute them for your regular lesson. And there's lots of things that I really like about them. Could you share my screen,
Oh,
Dan?
at the bottom of the application, there's a green button with an up arrow that says share. You can click on
Okay.
that and
Oh,
then
yes.
identify which screen.
This one. Okay. Can you see it?
Yes.
Okay. So this is lesson 3.7. So the regular version is the sun and clouds graphic, and you're trying to resize it to fit a certain page, I think, if I remember rightly, because I don't actually teach that one anymore. I always use this one. So it's the same content and it's the same idea. Um, and one of the things about these, what are called problem cycle lessons, that's why it says PC here at the top, is that there really are lots of different ways to solve the problem, which in fact isn't actually true of a lot of the Quantway lessons. Even though, we say we want the students to solve it by their own method, often there really is only one that's actually going to work with perhaps some minor variations. So in these ones, there actually are. So you'll know this from if you teach the Quantway core, that there's lots of different ways to solve this lesson. How would you make that graphic fit? Wherever, make it the size you want or fit on the page. So this is the question, and you don't really need to know the details except, you're resizing this image to a certain size. So there's many things I like about this problem solving method that are used in these lessons. But one of my favorite things is this, which is the grid of all the anticipated student responses. And I just find it so useful in other lessons as well, because I think one of the difficult things about teaching Quantway, especially when you're starting, is the lack of control you have over the classroom, because you've put the problem in the students' hands, and now you're like, okay, what are they going to do? And it can be quite stressful. And I've certainly found that I'll see students working on something and they have some working, but it's hard for me to figure out on the spur of the moment, what are they doing, and is this something that's going to work, particularly if there really are several methods. So in this grid, it should have all the things the students might do, and some of them can be the wrong ones, like number 1 here is wrong, but I'm sure if you've taught this lesson, you'll know that's what a lot of students do. They just try to add the same amount onto each side. And then it will say, what are the students thinking, and what questions can you ask them to promote productive struggle, so to help them without telling them the answer, because that's another thing that can be difficult. Even if you recognize what they're doing, what do you say rather than actually give them the answer? So I find it really helpful. So there's all the different methods should be here. I always wanted us to, when we were working on these lessons, to put more wrong ones in, right? There's only one wrong one here, but there are other wrong ones students can do. And you need to have a good response to that too. I'll just show you. I tried to find one that I had used, and that where I had, in a very nice organized way, put in all my additional things I wanted, but I'm not that organized. So this is just one from last semester. Over here, you put the names of the students you want to call on, and the order of these methods should be the order in which you want. So you often start with incorrect ones or partially correct ones, and then move to what you might be actually trying to do. Sorry, I have to show you the other one. Oh, could you see my, let me just go back to this one, right? You can see this one, the one from the lesson.
Yes.
Yep. So you're working your way up to the proportion, which is what you're hoping the students will learn. right, in this lesson, proportions. So this is mine that I use. So can you see this one, or do I need to go back to that share thing?
Oh, we can see it with your annotations.
With my lovely annotations on it. Yes, right. Okay, good. So in this column over here, you put the students that you want to call on, and you will call on them in this order, which obviously you can change if you want to, but so you'll work up from, attempts to that don't work, to what attempts that do it, to what you really want. And so I just try to add in here anything I found. So during class, I found somebody who was really doing this method, instead of doing 6.5 divided by 1.5, right, which is what the new width would be, they were doing this 1.5 times what equals 6.5, and they were just putting different numbers into their calculator until they could do it. And so I wrote it down, so hopefully next time I teach this, I'll think of a good response to that. I mean, probably what I said was, how about dividing those two numbers? But it would be nice to have something more productive struggle-like for that. And then I also added, here's a wrong one. They've got the right idea that it's a ratio, but they multiply the wrong side, and here was my question. So like I say, there's lots of other things in the problem cycle lessons that are really nice, but this one is my favorite.
Right. Thank you, Rowan. One quick comment before we open it up to question and answer. These lessons can be found. There are, I think, about 4 QuantWay core lessons. They're in the curriculum folder and the QuantWay core folder. There's a subfolder called fit lessons, and there are also StatWay fit lessons that are in the StatWay pathway folder under a fit folder subfolder. So cool. Open things up for Q&A.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Rowan, because I did not know that those were there or what they really were. I don't think I've ever looked at them. And this kind of thing of anticipating what their responses are is something we already do, and in a less structured way. And so I really like that it's almost like a rubric, and that it's already set up for us to kind of plug in who we're going to go to or what we're seeing, and that kind of is in already in some of the lessons, but not to that extent. So thank you for bringing that to my attention. It's definitely something I'll use.
Yes, I agree. I've just found it was more organized, and I was able to do it better when I had it in that grid than, because like you say, it's in the instructor's notes somewhere, but it's not so easy to find. So I find it very helpful.
And in the follow-up, I'll include links to those.
I have one other.
Go ahead.
So if this is, I guess, more for Dan, if we're doing this, if we're using these fit lessons, and then we find students doing things that are not in that list, is there a way for us to kind of report back to have some of those things included, or is that kind of like what Rowan did? She just had some personal notes because a student had done this, and she knew she was going to want to alter her teaching of it, and then, or at least have it in her back pocket, how she would respond to that in the future.
Yeah, that's a good question, Earl. So anytime you run across something like that in a lesson where you think something should be added, or you just have anything that you think should be changed in a lesson, whether it's the fit lessons or any of the regular lessons, Scott Strother is the one who manages the curriculum, but not expecting everyone to remember who to contact about that, about anything within Carnegie Math Pathways. So if you send those sort of comments or suggestions to me, then I'll always forward them to whomever is the appropriate person to get that sort of thing added. These lessons were developed, and actually I think, Rowan, you were a part of the development group using
Yes.
these lessons maybe 4 years ago.
Yes, it's a while ago now.
Yeah, so it has been a little while, and they are alternate lessons. So they would just be a trade out for the lesson that's in the student's books.
Right, right. Yeah, I really recommend if you have any spare time that you take a look, because I do think the problems are just that little bit more, give them the students a bit more scope for different methods.